Okay, here's a few more examples of downloading census data, trying to quickly show you what you have to do to get the data into the system. So here's some data for Indonesia, downloaded once again from the US Census, who seems to have data for quite a few countries there. And what we have is, first of all, a spreadsheet with the actual census data in it. And we have the boundary data once again as a shapefile and also a database file. So if we have a look, first of all, the census data as downloaded looks like this, and there's a whole lot of different years data. And what we're going to have to do is basically clean it up so we get the names of the administrative areas for mapping down here, and the various census data variables down here. Now, the sorts of problems you may have is that you have to be careful that the names here are unique, and that they're also not too long, because within AusGIS we only compare the first 16 characters of an area name. So when we throw away Indonesia, which we don't want, and put a units row in there and so on, we end up with something like this again. So we've got our names of our areas, the census variables down here. Once again, you may want to actually edit some of these to make them a bit more meaningful, and you usually put in a units row. Now, a couple of things. The units appear on the legend on the map, so if you haven't put one in, then nothing appears. You just get blank. Also, in this sort of data in the spreadsheet, if you've got missing data within the within somewhere, then you just have a blank field here. And if you're entering your own data, then there could be some areas you don't have data for. So that's the fixed up comma separated values, so you can go off to AusGIS and enter this in as attribute data. Now, the actual boundary data for drawing the map, once again you have a shapefile, and you have a database file which you can load into your spreadsheet again. And once again, what you're looking at here is various things which describe the shapefile. In this case, they seem to have tacked a lot of actual data into it, but really what you want to pick up when you enter the shapefile is the column that gives you the names that are the same as you've got in your spreadsheet. So you can go away and into AusGIS, import the shapefile in, and also give it this database name and tell it to use this column as the column to pick out the names of the polygons from. Okay. Okay, another example. Here's some English census data. Once again, we have a comma delimited file with holding the census data, which we've loaded into a spreadsheet. It's the areas, the zones are English wards in 2011 census, and this is the data as it comes in. You've got the usual thing, variables and rows. It gives you names. These are all ages, and so on. And so you clean it up in the usual sort of way. First column is the names of the polygons of the zones, and we've got rid of these surplus row here. and then our variables start in the second column and go across. These names have been edited a little bit, and then we put in an extra row here which gives you the units for these age groups and so on for all the variables. Okay, so rid of that. Now, also when we downloaded this, we downloaded the census data as the comma delimited files. We also downloaded the boundaries as shape files. So the two we're interested again is the actual shape file, which has the actual coordinates, and we also have a database file which describes the shape file, and so it's a DBF file, and once again it's a table, and so it relates to the entries in the shape file and gives you all the names for the polygons. So when we enter, we're going to use this column. So we can go away and do that. First of all, import our data, import our attribute file, which is the comma delimited file we just looked at, and go find out where it is. It's England. So we want our comma separated file, and this is the one we fixed up, so we'll put that in, give it an output internal file name, and it's England to, well, where are we? Census. Okay, so now we've got our attribute file there. Now we come back to life. Okay, then we want to put in our shape file, and pick up our shape, and this is our downloaded file, and we want also our database file, which is the one we had a look at. Give it an internal file name. Title. Now we have to, from the database file, give it the name that we want to use, and we've now got the geographic file there. So now we can do a map, our attribute, and our shape file. And there we have a file, a map of the two files that we've input. Okay, a final census data example. This is the census data for the United States counties, and I've downloaded it, and the usual way what you've got is you've got the boundary data as a shape file, and also there's a DBF file which goes with the shape file to describe the names of the polygons, the zones in the data. Also downloaded the census data, and the census data once again comes in as a comma separated file which you can load into a spreadsheet. Now obviously what you're going to do to map the counties is to use the names. Now this is a trap for young players because apparently these names are not unique. So example, I believe Clark County is repeated about a dozen times. Apparently the Clark brothers galloped all over the country. And so in this case, it'd be wise not to use the names, but to use the code being unique for these areas. So after we clean it up, in the first column, that now we have the codes, and then we have our census variables in following columns, and I've replaced all these various census names with the actual names that I want to use, and I've stuck as usual a units row across here. And having done that, I can then go away and the usual thing, import this fixed up file as a comma separated file into the system as an attribute file, and similarly go back and put in the shape file and the DBF file.